Hello, class. And yesterday we talked about classroom procedures, which are very important, and whenever we want to make sure everything is very well organized. And today we're going to talk about classroom rules. And specifically, you have to make rules. So you have to ask yourself, what rules do you want publicized for your classroom to know? This article is boring, but it is good if you skim it. So you don't have to read every word of it. So what I mean by skimming it is just catching some of the first parts of it. And I'll show you which ones are very important. One thing is it talks about the characteristics of effective classroom rules. And it's called a review of lit, which is very simple because that's what's important. It's going to go over some of the research that talks about classroom rules. It says that low teacher job satisfaction has been identified as a factor related to teacher attrition, absenteeism, burnout, and decreased student achievement. That is something that you're catching over the last lectures I've given. It's this idea of teacher burnout. And I'm going to do a video on that and how we can reduce our stress loads and make things better. In fact, 10% of surveyed teachers who left the field left because of school discipline issues. So I would question that statistic because I have heard that it's the reason the majority is, I saw another article that it's not what I expected, but that one's actually more specific. It says 10% are leaving because of discipline. So I would say it's probably going to be a little bit higher, but that's what it is. It's more of I expected it to be everything, and definitely classroom discipline is going to be an issue. The grim state of teacher prep in effective classroom management has been well documented. It talks about how teacher prep is not really great. And the reason it's not great is we don't put them in the classrooms fast enough. And that's the new change that we're seeing, is we're seeing that we're trying to put our teachers, when they say they want to be a teacher, we'll put them in the classrooms as fast as possible. Alternate route, you're going to be thrown into it the first day, but definitely, good luck. And we're trying to get you ready, but hopefully you've done some experience, you've done some subbing, you've done something where you've gone out there and seen what a classroom is like. But the benefit a lot of y'all have is you're generally older. You're not 22 years old coming straight out of college and wanting to go into this. You actually have an understanding of, you're more mature. So you understand you need to be there on time and items such as that. There may be a little bit of a shell shock, but for the most part, alternate route's not really shell shocked. They just go ahead and, they've seen it usually. Classroom rules are defined as the statements that teachers present to describe acceptable and unacceptable behavior. These can be spoken and unspoken, but they generally are written. They are generally written. Sorry about that. Put on the wall. So when they're usually put on the wall, that's you'll see those. And usually whenever you go into a classroom, you'll see them listed on the wall, and they're like, "Oh, there's the classroom rules," and you see that. And they don't need to be like a lawyer's document, but this article talks about how you need to write your classroom rules. So let's look at the research question: is what characteristics of classroom rules have been demonstrated through empirical research? And then they're going to look at some of this right here, and you're going to see all these. And then general study characteristics, let's get to the results. This is where you want to start skimming. Number of rules. So how many rules should you put on the wall? And the article goes all over the place, 3 to 5, no more than 6, and no more than 7. So you really need, with this, about 5 to 7 rules on your wall. So 5 to 7 rules that you're expecting, just so that the students can see and go, okay, that's what we're expecting. It says an average of 5.6. I'd say 5 to 7 rules. Created collaborative with students. That's something that you're going to see in this video coming up, which is argued against. I'm not really big on this, and many veteran teachers are not. It's this idea that you should sit down with the students and discuss your classroom rules And it became a big movement, especially in 90s. You see this in the 90s about we need to sit down with the students and agree on what rules we need to go by. I'm not really big on that. Some of y'all may be. You can try it. Jones and Jones outlined a multi-step interactive process in which students' feedback is gathered. You ask them what they want to do, and then simple as that. Kerr and Nelson provide a less detailed explanation on developing rules, but suggest that they are more likely to be followed than those are autocratic, which means that if students agree on the rules, then they'll likely follow them. You can really shy away from that. You can look at this chart as well. I would stay away from having the students discuss the rules, but that's always up to you. Now, I'll come back on this one because this one is true. Staying positive. You don't want rules that say do not do this, do not do that. You want positive rules. Be respectful to your fellow classmates. Please keep your hands to yourself, such as that. Specific and research says that as well. Specific in nature, in addition to stating rules positively, recommendations for the phrasing of rules are also somewhat equivocal. Classroom management textbooks recommend the use of specific and observable rules. So that's kind of up in the air. You can do that. There's categories respect and responsibility, stuff like that. Publicly posted. You should display the rules publicly in writing in a useful component of establishing classroom rules. This means usually you're going to blow it up with a machine. Sometimes the schools have these machines, laminate it, and place it on the wall. This will probably be on the wall forever. So you really need to put some thought into your rules. So you just want the students to see what the expectation in the classroom is. So you want to teach these to your class. And that's the next section right here. Teaching classroom rules to students was the most consistently discussed recommendation across secondary sources. So you need to teach it to your students. Hey, we're going to be respectful. And then that way you need to also, the word modeling comes in. We're going to model that. Me and my student teachers always get hung up on making them raise their hand to answer questions. And then, okay, that's fine, but a student raises their hand and asks a question, and another student just blurts out something and you don't correct that. Some of the rules are very specific in nature that you might want to shy away from. So you really need to think about how you want your class rules to read. So, for example, I'll give you some. I don't want to give away them all because we're going to have them for homework, but like, be respectful to all students. Okay, that eliminates a lot of the other rules, such as don't interrupt another student talking. Well, that'd be a negative rule. So that eliminates that rule by saying be respectful. So whenever a student acts up and you say you are not following the rule, well, which rule? You're not being respectful. So general items such as that do work. I am a staunch believer that you do not have to be a parent to be a good teacher. When I first started teaching, people would always say that. They would say, you're not a parent, so you don't understand. When you have a child, you'll understand. And I agree that that's mean to say. People shouldn't say that. However, after having kids, I will tell you this, you get a lot of practice doing this. So that is true. You don't have to be a good patient in a hospital to be a good nurse. But by being a parent, you've practiced some of these rules and how to enforce some of these rules. So think about that whenever you teach it. You need to model positive behavior. Sometimes new teachers, younger teachers, 24, 25 years of age, they have some issues with modeling because they're not very professional sometimes. So, they could be on their cell phone all the time. They could be talking, social media and all that. And they expect their students to act better, and then they don't. So that's always a catch with that. So you got to be careful with that. Tried to positive and negative consequences. We're going to pause here. I'm going to show you a video from a veteran teacher who I like listening to her teach. And she's going to be talking about classroom rules after being a teacher for so many years.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode number 2 of my series on classroom management. As you can see, I'm back in my car because I'm back to real life. Vacation is over. So the theme for this video is going to be rocking it old school. And before I get into the specific tips, I just want to remind everyone that this is not the be-all, end-all way of doing things. This is just my way. Stuff I've learned that works for me. Okay, so rocking it old school. I just mean that there are some tried and true techniques that teachers have used for a long time that just don't need to be changed or updated because they work. So back in the 1990s when I went through teacher training, our instructors really wanted us to, build community in our classrooms and get student buy-in. And so a suggestion they had for us, and that I used for the first 2 years, was to have students help create the classroom rules and sort of establish the norms. So as a new teacher, that's exactly what I did. The second day of school after the icebreakers, I then had all the students come together and we were gonna build this, community together and value everyone's opinion. And what ended up happening was we took 50 minutes to do what I could have done in 5 minutes. And at the end of that hour, the rules we came up with were pretty much the same rules as every other classroom, because classroom rules are typically pretty reasonable and the kids came up with exactly what we would have wanted them to say anyway. So I felt like it was a bit of a time waster because I do all these other things to build community in my room, right? I learn their names right away and I have them learn each other's names, and we do icebreakers and there's learning games and small group and large group instruction. And so really there's a lot of other things we can do to build community. And that whole idea of the kids setting the rules seemed like a little bit of a touchy-feely kumbaya strategy that in reality I didn't even need. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that we don't make the rules of our work and college environments. So when they get out of our high school classes, there's going to be a handbook of student behavior at their university, or, human resources is going to have a manual that they're to follow. So workers don't create the rules of their environment. They see very clearly what the rules are, and then they follow those rules. So in my classroom, I set the rules, and I, suggest that you set the rules as well. Our rules are very reasonable. Next week in episode 3, I'm going to give you the 4 simple rules I use to guide my year. I'll even have a handout for you to download if you want to see what I give my students. So I guess that's my first old school rule, or old school rocking it. You set the rules, make your clear expectations, and then let's get on with the business of learning. Okay, the second rocking it old school tip is that whole don't smile till Christmas advice, which you may have heard. Now, I disagree with it literally, but I do agree with it somewhat in terms of the spirit. So I don't think they mean literally do not crack a smile until Christmas, because if you're telling me not to smile until Christmas, that's impossible. So on day 1, I'm smiling, hey, how you doing? Learning names, making that first contact of building relationships, because I'm having fun at work and I want them to work hard, play hard for me. So I don't literally follow that advice, but the spirit of it is good, because the spirit of the advice is that it's easier to establish control and then loosen up a little bit than it is to try to gain control of an out of control classroom. So from the very start, what I call sweat the small stuff. I have my rules very clearly stated, and then I enforce those rules religiously for the first month, the first 9 weeks even. So if you have your phone out in my class, I'm taking it from you. If you haven't done your homework, I'm going to one-on-one mention to you that I noticed that and find out what's up with you not doing your work, because that's not going to fly around here. So I'm on them right from the get-go in a very loving way, but I make it very clear that I apply these rules evenly to everyone. And that's another thing. Teenagers have a real strong barometer for fairness. So if they feel like you're, following the rules with some groups of students and then letting other kids get away with stuff, they will not connect with you at all. So they want to see that you are even in applying the rules, and it makes everyone feel comfortable when they know what the expectations are. So sweat the small stuff, at least for that first 9 weeks, and then we can lighten up, loosen up as we get to know each other a little bit later in the year. Third, rocking it old school tip is I assign seats. I know some teachers just sort of have an open seating policy and let the kids pick where they want to sit. I am not that teacher. I will assign you a seat, and every 9 weeks I'll change it for a new seating chart. That first 9 weeks, as I'm getting to know everyone, I actually do alphabetical seating chart, which just helps my brain learn it faster. And the first day of school, when kids come in, I've made an index card, and it has each name for each period, and I've taped them all over the desks, all around the room, and the kids come in, and it's kind of like a giant Easter egg hunt as they find their name. What I really like about it is, one, it's showing that I'm super organized, that I'm kind of in charge. I have a plan and you have an assigned seat. It's very easy for the kids to follow that. And then I also like it because it's really sweet. Some of the kids who know each other from previous years will actually like help each other out as the kids are coming in. And they might say, oh, hey, Nick, your seat's over there. Or Sally, I saw your seat back there. And then what I do is one-on-one, just at a quiet time, I lean into that kid who was helping his others, and I say, wow, that was really great of you, how you helped Sally earlier find her seat. Really great. I love seeing that. Thanks. And then I move on. So I'm noticing and I'm building relationships right away while keeping my new world organized and learning their names. So I would suggest assigning seats. Again, not all teachers do that, and that's up to them. What works for them is great for them, but for this girl, I need the right child in the right seat. Now, that being said, once attendance is taken at the beginning of the hour, we often like move seats around, and I've got teams and groups, and we're moving furniture all the time. But, for the order of it, you do have an assigned seat, and that's where you need to be at the beginning of things. And then finally, I want to keep the video short, not too long. The golden rule. That's my last rocketed old school rule. Basically, it's for everything in life. Treat them how you would want to be treated, or how you would want a teacher to treat your own children. And I take that in terms of modeling what I want to do for them too. So I give tons of respect, and then I expect tons of respect in return. Even my respect of the time that we spend together. So they're looking at us for all kinds of cues, from what we're wearing to how we present things to the types of materials we're using. And, sorry, it threw me off. And so I want to model that I'm taking our time together seriously. So right from the beginning of class, I hit the ground running. I'm not on my email. I have the bell ringer projected up on the board, and we go, because I value the time that they're there with me, just like I want them to, have buy-in and work really hard. Okay, so that's it for me. Work hard, play hard. We rock it old school around here for some of the things. Next week, stay tuned. I'm going to have that handout for you showing the 4 simple rules that can set you up for success. You guys have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye.
I like her videos. That she seems very positive. She also has more of a veteran teacher spin to it. There's other videos, if you go to YouTube and you look at some of the ones, and some of them are just real fluffy, and they're just trying to get subscribers so that they can get, view counts, which result in money. They may be making millions of dollars, but there's some that are just really, you can tell they're in a studio, they're well lit, and I like her videos because she is more personable, and she actually tells some things that are truthful, which is very good. She really just gets to it. The last part talks about positive and negative consequences. So the use of consequences that reinforce rule compliance and punish rule breaking is also frequently identified. Scott and colleagues recommend that the consequence be a logical fit for the rule. So this is where you really will shine on as a teacher. What are your consequences for people who misbehave? Now, many new teachers, especially my alternate route, will say, I'm going to look at what the handbook says. Whoa, now let's be careful with that. The handbook is there for administrative purposes. You need to control your classroom. So many times a new teacher forgets that. I'll just refer them to the office. So let's be aware what we mean by referring to the office. When you refer a student to the office, you are telling the principal 2 things. 1, the action that the student has conducted goes beyond the punishment that I wish to give. Because, for example, you can't give in-school suspension. You can't suspend a student from school. So you're saying that the actions warrant punishment beyond what I can give. And the second thing you're saying is, I cannot resolve this conflict because of the first reason, the action is too much for you. Simple as that. So think about that. If you have a student chewing gum and you refer them to the office, could you have handled that in-house? And referrals, if the principal is a stickler, the number of referrals you give to students can result in your termination because you're saying that you can handle classroom management. So you have to be careful with that. And I've had principals like that. I had a principal who, he said if a student is chewing gum, write them up. So I was like, yes, sir. He's like, every one of them who chews gum, write them up. We was like, okay. So we wrote up every one of them, and we had hundreds of referrals going in for gum chewing. Well, then the next principal came in and said, do whatever the other principal did. So we started sending out referrals. But some of the veteran teachers realized that he did not like referrals. So after about a year of everyone, the new teachers not reading the writing on the wall and seeing that he did not like referrals, he started saying very clearly in meetings, no more, cut down on referrals, cut down on referrals. And then he started calling teachers into his office saying, what can I do to cut down on your referrals? Now that's a red flag when the principal starts calling you and saying, what can I do to help manage your classroom? That means he's telling you, you are writing up people too much. So you have to kind of read that on the writing on the wall. So with that said, when you do your consequences, think about what you can do in-house to eliminate that office referral. So if a student is being disrespectful for a student to another student, then you could write your consequence as warning. Okay? Next one, I have talk to the teacher. Think about rules and consequences. I don't want to give them up because there's all kinds of consequences you can have. So think about the consequences that you want to have for your class. Now, of course, you can also put a little note on the bottom of it that says you can jump from level to level. So like if a student is very disrespectful, then you can jump from warning to the next one. So think about what kind of discipline ladder you want inside your classroom. Many of my new teachers rely on what the school provides, and you don't want to do that. So this is the really important lecture for anyone wanting to stay out of issues. Remember, office referrals mean those two things that I told you. The punishment is so severe that it needs to be above me, and I can't resolve this without help. The two things right there. So I'll give you a real world example. I had a student who always acted up in class. If I said the sky was blue, he would say it's black. If I said that Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, he would say, well, there's no truth to that. So he always would counter and always cause trouble. So I knew what he wanted. He wanted to be sent to the office. He wanted to not be in school. So I wouldn't give him what he wanted. So I couldn't make him stand in the corner, obviously. So what I ended up doing was I took his chair and I faced the corner of the wall. And I said, this is your new seat. And he said, I don't want to sit there. And I said, I understand, but this is your new seat until you act better. And he's like, no. And I was like, no, just have a seat. Because if he had refused to sit there, then it would have been a write-up for refusing to sit in a seat. And he didn't want that. He wanted to be sent to the office for little things. Acting up. That's what he wanted. He didn't want big things. So if he had stood up and said, I'm not sitting there, then I said, I need you to sit in that seat. See, that's the whole idea. So he knew that. So the whole point was he kept pushing it. So I made him sit facing the wall, not in the corner, but facing the wall, away from everyone. And I would lecture, and if he interrupted, he had to turn around to interrupt. And I wouldn't let him. I was like, no, just turn around. After a day of that, after one class period, 50 minutes, he came back the next day and he said, what do I need to do to not be sitting back there, away from everybody? And I said, just be good. And he said, I'll do that. And he would come to class, he would sit there during the lectures, he'd put his head down and sleep, or he'd wake up, or he'd do whatever, but he never interrupted class again because he knew that there was a limit to that. Now, the office never knew about that punishment. His parents never knew. And I resolved it in-house. Now, there's other things like students fighting that you have to obviously tell the office about. But you can resolve a lot of things in-house. So So think about that. So your homework assignment will be making classroom rules, where you're going to need 5 or 6 rules, or 5 to 7 rules that are the way this article outlines it, not very specific, no negatives, and then very general. And then you're going to need to have 2 things: consequences and rewards. What rewards are you going to give students for obeying the rules? Now, these can be very open, like a successful future, or no incidences at all will get bonus points or whatever. So think about some rewards and consequences. So you're going to have rules, rewards, and consequences. Make it on a Word document, just like you're going to blow it up and make it pretty and put it on the wall. So that's one thing you want to have, is your classroom rules and consequences. Another thing that's been causing us some trouble, especially in this day and age, are cell phones. And cell phones are everywhere now. So I'm going to show you this article right here, this news report about cell phones in a class.
Cell phones are everywhere, even in the classroom, but Albuquerque schools are confiscating hundreds of phones, and some of them they're keeping for a very long time. News 13's Chris McKee questioned the district about it. Chris is on special assignment.
505.
They're young,
2591.
but kids with cell phones
I got mine like a couple of years ago. Yeah.
are today's norm.
I got mine in about 3rd grade.
I think they help.
Parents like Summer Quick have their reasons.
I mean, my daughter got her phone when she was in 6th grade. Sometimes I could be late picking her up.
Be able to communicate with their parents.
Making sure that they made it home safely.
But during school, Albuquerque Public Schools policy says cell phones should be out of sight and silent or turned off. If not, teachers can take them away.
It has been a concern and a distraction.
Vernon Martinez is a longtime APS principal, now at McKinley Middle School.
Cell phones going off in class. You find students texting each other in class to make arrangements to maybe go meet in the bathroom.
News 13 wanted to know how many cell phones APS schools take away each year, but the district says they don't keep those numbers.
Here at McKinley Middle School, the principal says so far he's seen about 3 to 4 cell phones taken away. But by the end of the year, he says some other schools will see much higher numbers.
I wanted to ask you as well,
Martinez was at James Monroe Middle School last year.
There probably was at least 25 to 40 phones confiscated through the year, and that's probably a conservative estimate.
And APS says in some cases they're allowed to keep those cell phones even from the parents.
Oh, wow.
They need to write that in the handbook.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Toby Herrera helped draft APS's cell phone policy under the direction of the school board.
Most of them now understand the rules.
The first time a phone's taken away, parents can pick it up at the end of the day. The second time, it's a week. And the third time,
It identifies that the cell phone should not be picked up until the end of the semester.
Would you be okay with that, them hanging on to it that long?
No, I would not be.
I don't like that at all. I pay for the bill. That's my child's phone.
At least call their parents to come pick it up and, ground them from it.
but APS says it's all to protect the learning environment.
We would prefer not to hang on to the student's property, but at some point, after 3, warnings, we have to think about the whole rather than the individual.
While some parents say they agree with taking phones away,
It can be pretty distracting,
many think the district shouldn't be hanging on to them.
I need to be able to communicate with my child.
I don't believe it should be on school property.
If I have to go and pick it up, you shall release it to me.
Chris McKee, KRQE News 13.
While district policy advises schools on how long they should hang on to disruptive student cell phones, some schools have set their own time limits. The district's exact cell phone punishment guidelines are not listed in the student handbook, but we've posted links to all of it at krqe.com.
There really is no solution to cell phones. Well, I'm going to put this article right here. I'm going to put it online. You don't have to read it if you don't want to, but it just gives you a general idea of classroom cell phones, rule setting, rule breaking, and relationships in classrooms. Whenever you start your job, or if you're currently in a job, you need to look at your district-wide policy on cell phones. Some schools have a 0 cell phone policy. Just go look at it. I am pro cell phones because I think they're amazing on technology. They're like a little computer. Kids can research with them. But I do see that students, maybe 14 to 17 years of age, could be a little immature with cell phones. They don't know how to stop, and they don't know how to control themselves. But also I see adults doing the same thing. I see them texting while driving. I see people going for runs with their cell phones out. And I don't know why. You know, running is very therapeutic. It is very, it's meditation almost for some people, for most people. It can make your head, you know, go to different places. I don't know why you want to bring your cell phone with you. So this article talks about cell phones so that you can see, and it just talks about setting up rules and breaking the rules and elements like that. So you don't really have to read this if you don't want to, but if you're ever having trouble with cell phones in the classroom, you can look at this article as well. There's a last video I want to show you, and I'm going to edit it out on some sections. But this is a school teacher who's she has a YouTube blog, and she did a blog. She blogged her entire student teaching and those aspects, and then she was really gung-ho about she got a job. And I remember she sent this blog out. She's like, I got a job, and she's talking about she was going to blog her entire first semester as a school teacher. Well, then she disappeared. She quit blogging at all. And then she posted this video about a week ago, and it's after she got hired in January for one semester. And you can tell the situation that you're being put in on that. You're being hired for a job in January after a teacher has quit. So, and she talks about this, rules, procedures, items such as that, she had to either change or adapt. And she just says that first semester. So she did a mid-year hire, and she says that was very stressful. So she just put this blog up, and I thought it was really good because she's truthful, and she's just saying things were harder than I expected. And so I'm going to let you watch this video. You understand what's going to be in homework, and then I'll talk about that at the end. Thanks so much.
Hey guys, so I really hope that you can hear me. I have a lot of things going on. So first of all, I'm outside because that's just the best place currently. I'm at my parents' house because it's during the week, but I'll talk about that. What my classroom looked like before and after. But when my mom and I went up there in January, for those of you who don't know, I just graduated in December and I started in January, so I got a job in January. And so I went up there in December. I'm sorry, it was like the very first of January. I couldn't get in there until like a week before school started. And when Mom and I went, it was an absolute disaster. The previous teacher hadn't moved out yet, or had kind of halfway moved out, but mostly didn't. And it was like a week before school started. And I was coming all the way from where I currently live, which is an hour away from where I'm working. So I stay with my parents a lot because they only live about 20 minutes away. Excuse me. Oh, this summer cold is going to be the death of me. Anyway, my parents live about 20 minutes away from the school that I teach at currently. And so anyway, I was having to travel a lot just to get my classroom set up, and it was just a disaster. And so I really wanted to film it, but there was just so much that I had to do, that we had to do, that I just did not have time. Like, I just literally didn't have time. And even when I did get it set up, it just wasn't ever what I really wanted it to be, which is, oh, we have dogs. Hello, dogs. Bye-bye, dogs. Anyway, so it just never really was what I wanted it to be. And I know that's how it is, and I know that you guys probably didn't want to see that, because some of you, if you are soon to be teachers, or you're a student teaching at during the first semester of school and you want to get a job at the second half, I do wish that I would have shown it, but it was just, this semester was a lot. It was just a lot. So another thing that happened was that my computer just quit working, so I couldn't edit vlogs anymore except on my phone, and then I could only upload like so many minutes onto YouTube once I edited it, and it was just a mess. And vlogging on my phone was just not great. And I don't know, I guess it's just a lot of excuses to say that I did not vlog a lot this semester. It's currently May 21st, so we have, tomorrow is the last day of exams, final exams, and then Wednesday is a 60% day, and then Thursday we have to come up to work registration for the next year. So a little bit of an update of, you know, how this semester has gone. It has been rough, to say the least. Being a first-year teacher in the middle of a semester, when you're like in middle school or even elementary, high school isn't such a big deal because students are switching classes anyway in the middle of the semester. So your first, semester with them is their first semester in that class, I guess, if that makes sense. But in my situation, I was stepping into a classroom that had been somebody else's for the whole first half of the year. I'm sorry, it's cold. So a lot of routines and procedures had already been established, and every teacher is different. So my routines and procedures were different than hers. Not that hers were bad or mine were better, they were just different. And also, as far as behavior, this is a particularly difficult group of students. And if it were just my class with a lot of the behavior problems, I would just chalk it up to, I'm a first-year teacher and they're just taking advantage of me and I need to work on my classroom management, which is definitely true. But this particular group of 7th graders, every single 7th grade teachers, they're having the same problems. So it's just this particular group of students. Behavior is a major issue. And getting anything taught in a day was a feat because behavior, just talking and the disrespect and, just everything that goes along with rough behavior in the classroom. And so it was like that before. And I somehow, for whatever reason, kind of had it in my mind, maybe when I come in, it'll be a fresh start and with new procedures that, we'll kind of start over and maybe we can kind of fix some of those behavior things. That was very naive of me to think that because that's not how it went at all. If anything, it was probably worse because they had gotten really comfortable. And even though I was new and my procedures were new, they were already comfortable in the classroom. And so behavior just got progressively worse for everybody, for all of the 7th grade teachers. And, we had a range of different years of teaching. Some teachers have been there for about 15 years. Some have been there for 9. One of my really good friends, her first year was at the very beginning of the year, and then I came in the middle of the year. So there's a range of different years that teachers have been there for the 7th grade teachers. That makes sense. And they acted the same for all of us. And, just some groups of students are like that. I completely understand. But going from what I had experienced in student teaching, which was hard, it was definitely hard, and behavior problems are everywhere. Like, you're not going to have a perfect classroom anywhere. So you're not going to have a perfect classroom anywhere, and I understand that. But it was just very, very, very difficult. And I felt like every time I would go to turn on the camera, it would just be complete negativity. And, and I know that it was real and it was raw, and it would have been a good thing for, I'm so sorry. My brother's dog keeps knocking into the table that I'm using. But anyway, so I know that it would have been a really great thing for you guys to see, and maybe some of you could relate. But I just felt so bad, and I was also really uncomfortable because being a first-year teacher, I didn't want to, my administration, nobody knows that I'm on YouTube at all. Very, very few people, pretty much like my family and my closest friends. So I didn't want anybody to find out, and I didn't want them to go on to find my channel and see that I had been talking negatively on the internet, because that's not what I want to do. I don't want to bring negativity to anybody, and I also don't want to get in trouble. So, and it's just such a foreign thing, especially here in the deep South. Teachers aren't really on YouTube, I guess. I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable talking about that yet because I'm not really an established teacher yet. So I didn't want that to hurt my prospects on getting somewhere else, which kind of brings to another update. So I really, really wanted to get back to the school where I did my first student teaching experience, which you guys saw because I did vlog that pretty well. And I really wanted to get back there. I really wanted to be in 8th grade with my mentor teacher. But I just, I had been trying and trying. I had, applied again, and I'd been talking to some people, and it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. It just seemed like there was a position that was going to become available.
All right, so I edited some sections on that video, and it actually goes on longer. It's about a 25-minute video, but I like that first part because she talks about something that's very critical, and that is becoming a teacher mid-semester or mid-year after the current teacher has already established their procedures and all that. She also deferred. She made some kind of excuses like she didn't have a mentor. We're going to talk about mentors. Well, she probably didn't have a mentor, but she also says the students were all bad students or kind of troubling students. I think that's the word she uses. But then she also admits that she had made some mistakes as well. One thing definitely is I don't know if it's in the video, but she says that she had a 1-hour commute. A 1-hour commute to work is definitely going to cause stress. And so that's a big thing too. So I like that video because she's honest. There's so many videos out there on YouTube and all the other sources where people are completely honest. They're called vlogs, where they just say it like it is. So I really like her video. I'm actually going to start following her more because I'm interested to see how her teaching is on her second year when she's got her rules. And I'm about 99% sure that after next year, she will do very well. And the reason is what we're talking about. She's going to start in August with her set procedures, her set rules, and everything. Picking up mid-year, trying to do that is difficult, especially when she's talking about state testing coming in. So this is just a real fun lecture today about rules. So your homework assignment is going to be like an actual presentation that you're going to do on the wall, have your classroom rules, rewards, and consequences listed, and then you can decorate the borders in a Word document just like you're going to blow it up and make it pretty on the wall. And that's all you got to do. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. Thank you for listening.